nothing I love more than a technical glitch. You can see that my background looks a little bit different. Maybe the camera quality is a little bit different. And that is because I'm using my laptop because the camera won't turn on. So that's super fun, but I am committed to doing this. So I'm going to keep going because I really felt like I had this feeling that today I need to talk about what is Reiki. So I'm going to come on here. It's actually kind of cool though, because then you can see the difference of the really awesome setup that I created, which was yesterday's stream compared to this, which is fine. It's still beautiful. You see a lot more color, a lot more lightness in the back of me, but I really want to talk about Reiki and nothing is going to stop me, not even a technical glitch. So, what is Reiki? This is one of the questions I get so much in my line of work as a Reiki master. So, Reiki is a form of Japanese energy healing. So, what does that mean? I like to think of it like this. We know that everything in the world vibrates. This is a fact. Science can prove it. Everything is vibrating. So, there is a form of energy that is making the sun set and rise. There is a form of energy that's making plants grow. There's a form of energy that flows throughout the universe when two people fall in love and you feel something. So, there is a measurable universal energy. And what Reiki does is it reconnects you to that universal flow. It is so incredible what I've seen Reiki do in my own life, as well as many of my friends, as well as many of my clients. And it's really gentle, which is interesting. I used to be so masculine and I was like, I want the hardest thing. I want to go in the jungle and do ayahuasca, which I've also done. We'll do that, we'll talk about that another time. I wanted the most intense thing possible. And now, many years on my journey, I realized that what I was missing was the softness, was the tender, was the feminine energy. And Reiki is so much those things. It is unconditional love. That is what the frequency is. It will not give you more than you can handle. It is so divinely intelligent. It is something that is so special. It is so incredible. The one who brought Reiki into the world actually went to a cave and like prayed for healing, for harmony, for love, all these things, and then saw the symbols that we use in Reiki. He was given those in the sand. And every variation is a little bit different, but that's my understanding. And there are 4 symbols in Reiki. Level 1, it's just going to all be about self. It's going to be about grounding. It's really about healing yourself. I have this long held belief that my teacher said that if the whole world was Reiki 1 certified, the world would change overnight. And I believe that so deeply because so many of us are filling from an empty cup, right? And so what Reiki level 1 does is it helps to fill you up. And then you go to level 2, which has 2 symbols. That's when you start working with others. That's when you can make it a business, yada, yada. This isn't a sales call. I just want to tell you guys about Reiki. And then that's when you can start doing distance, which is really helpful, even if you just want to send it to like your friends and family, if someone's ever sick. And then there is the master level. So the master level is life changing. I feel like when I got my certification, no one prepared me for how much my life would change after the master level. I feel like I did it, and I'll actually tell you that story in a second. But I really tried to let anyone know who wants to do the master, like, hey, just make sure that this is what you want to do because it'll change your life forever. It'll never be the same because you become highly sensitive to everything. And level 1, level 2, you can kind of like turn it on or off. When you do the 3rd level, the master level, to my understanding, how I was taught, there are a lot of ways to teach Reiki and there are a lot of flavors. My understanding is that you never turn off. So you are committing to a life of service to the greater good, that anywhere you go, you will be giving Reiki. There have been times where I will feel the urge to go somewhere where I don't need anything. And I will walk in and I will immediately like feel Reiki being pulled from me. And I'm like, oh, someone here needs Reiki. And so my intuition led me here to help them. So it becomes like you really are in service to the world. And the reason that is incredible is because everyone needs help. The reason that it can be sometimes hard is because it makes you highly sensitive to sound, to crowds, to food. Like you become such a vessel that you really have to take care of your body a lot more, which was something that I wasn't prepared for. But I'm so glad I did it. And it's interesting because I actually wasn't planning on doing it. I did level one truly just because my friend was level one. And every time I saw her, I was like, will you do some Reiki on me? She's like, why don't you just like go get certified? And so I did get certified in Huntington Beach. And then before I was moving back to LA, I thought, might as well just do level two while I'm down here. It's just a little weekend. I'll just do it. I had no plan to become a healer. I had no plan to do the master level. That was just not on my peripheral at all. But when I went back to LA, things had changed so much after COVID that it was really intense with all the testing and all the things to get on set. And so you had to wear like masks, obviously, of course, during that time. And like it'd be 110-degree heat. You'd be dressed up as like a soldier with a mask on outside. It was just so intense at that time that I really felt like my body didn't want to be on set, even though I moved to LA back to act at the time. And so I happened to have an extra room in my LA home, which never happens if you've lived in LA. There was like kind of one of those middle rooms that was just filled with junk. And I asked my roommate and I said, can I just like clean all that out? Can I paint it? I used to do design. Can I make this little Reiki studio? And she said, sure. And so I did all that with my friend. I had no following at the time. So I put up a little website. I told some people and it really spread like wildfire. And so that was so shocking to me because it wasn't something that I was doing out of like dream or intention. I did it more out of necessity because I moved back to LA and things were really difficult in the acting space. And I kind of was like, what else can I do? And I was like, well, I have this certification. I guess I can just do this in the meantime until things ease up a little bit in the acting space. And it's so interesting because I remember one of my last times being in Laguna Beach where I was living at the time before I moved back to LA. There were these things called Reiki share nights. And so you could just basically like go and give and receive Reiki at the same time. And I remember giving Reiki to this, I think she was like around 16-year-old girl. And I kept hearing, and you've probably heard me share this story before, I kept hearing they're not going to get divorced. They're not going to get divorced. They're not going to get divorced. And I had never had something so strong, so specific come through for anyone. Remember, this is before I was ever in the sphere of working and helping others in this way. So I was just kind of like, why do I keep hearing this? What's going on? And so at the end of the night, I finally went up to her and said, hey, like, I don't know what this means, but they're not going to get divorced. And she said something along the lines of, she was really emotional. She said, my parents just got separated. I'm really upset about it. And I was just like blown away because I don't know this girl by the specificity of it. And I was like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I just have a feeling like I keep having this knowing while working on you that they're not going to get divorced. And I feel like I had to share that. And I remember driving home along the coast from that Reiki share and just thinking, maybe this is meant for more than just me. I had already come to a place where I felt like I monetized a lot of my creative projects. And I held spirituality so close to my heart because it saved me, like it saved my life at my darkest point, that I really didn't want to share it with others. Which is so ironic now where I am, but I just feel like I'd shared so much of myself and it kind of took away some of the sweetness and the sparkle of creativity when I tried to monetize it. And I was really afraid that if spirituality became like my job, that it would also kind of dull the sparkle. And I loved it so much. I, even at the time, wasn't sharing a lot of my spirituality with my friends. It was kind of this like secret lover that I had that was making me so happy. So it was just a really interesting moment when that happened. And I thought, oh my gosh, this might be bigger than me. And then sure enough, fast forward to when I moved to LA and then I put the table up out of pure necessity. And it just really spread like wildfire, all by word of mouth, by my little, my little free website that I created. It just really spread by referrals. And it was so interesting because still I never planned to do the Reiki master. I don't know why. I just never saw Reiki being like a long-term part of my plan. It just felt like it was a momentary thing that was needed. And it was so amazing. And like I said yesterday, it was like I was working on this huge Adidas shoot as like a producer or commercial, and it was crazy. And then I was, juxtaposed to these beautiful sessions. And it was like this really weird time in my life where I felt like I was split down the middle doing these two very opposite things. And still, I really had no plan to do the master. And it's so interesting kind of tracing it all back now because I went on a bachelorette trip at the beginning of 2022, I believe it was. And at the time, I'd barely been drinking. I had done different bouts of like not drinking for 9 months. Then I started drinking a little bit again. We can have a whole nother, kind of stream about alcohol, but I never felt like I had a problem. It was more just that once I started doing the healing work, I felt like it was harder to hold the frequency and hold that for others when I was drinking, just because alcohol is like a more dense vibration, right? And so at the time that I was invited to this bachelorette, I wasn't drinking a lot. It was in Cabo. It was like, 5 days full on. I don't think I'd been to a bachelorette party in years. So I was really not wanting to go. At the time, finances were really tight. So I didn't want to spend the money because it was like a 5-star hotel. And it was just the whole thing. My whole body was just like screaming no. But I felt like I needed to go. And so I did. And it ended up being exactly what most bachelorettes are like, just like tons of drinking. I also at the time wasn't friends with a lot of people in the group besides the bride. And so it was a lot of like new people. And I wouldn't say that I have had a very close knit like girlfriends a couple years ago. I have tons and tons of girlfriends now, but they're all super conscious. So like our language is very different than maybe your average kind of girl on girl like friendship and cattiness and jealousy and all that. Like there's none of that in my girl world, and it's just really interesting being kind of submerged in this group of a lot of these women and kind of just seeing like the craziness and the cattiness and like all of it. But I totally feel like I jumped right into like I'm not I'm not innocent in this, because it's kind of those things when you're in, I feel a bit like a bit of a shapeshifter, so you kind of become what you're surrounding by. So anyways, long story short, I drank more than I wanted to and should have. I feel like a part of my less conscious self was coming out. I just got back from that trip and felt so depleted mentally, physically, spiritually, financially. It was like I came back at just ground zero. And I remember just sitting there and being like, what have I done? I should have listened to my intuition and not gone. But also, why did I revert back to that part of myself? It was just like oh, it was just the worst. And you also know how it is when you're like coming down from days of drinking, just like physically awful. And I did a session, and it's so funny. I didn't know I was going to talk about this today or would have looked up. It's either RTT or RRT. I think it was RTT, rapid transformation therapy. I'll look that up and put it in the comments to confirm that because I've done both and I get them confused because they're so similar. And I did this session with this incredible healer. And because I honestly felt like I was so wrung out that I was like, there's like nothing for me here. I'm so blown out, right? And so I did this session and she put me into like a deep trance state. And I remember her taking me to a moment where I felt very like unseen. I think we were doing some work around my father at the time. And it was like this play when I felt like he missed the play or something. And she was taking me back into that moment. And she said, now go, go give her flowers, hold her, and just like be with her and love her and give her what you didn't get at the time. And I was like, okay, I did. And then in the thing, she goes, now tell this inner child, this version of yourself, something that she would think is really cool that you do or that you've done. And it's so interesting because if I had been conscious, I would have said something like, I pitched a show to HBO, or, I made this amount of money one time, or just something along those lines. But what came out of my mouth in that really form of like deep subconscious regression was I heal people with my hands. And it's so funny because when I do Reiki, I don't feel like it's me. I feel like the energy is moved. I'm just a vessel. I'm a channel. Like the energy is moving through me. But for whatever reason, that's how it came out in that moment. Because I think that's how my inner child would understand it best. And she was like, oh my gosh, like I knew we were magic. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. That's so cool. And I was just like laughing. And then she just gets really solemn and she just looks at me and she goes, so can you make people feel better? And I go, yeah, that's what I do. I make people feel better, like with my hands, I place them on them and then it helps them feel better. And she looks at me and she goes, can you put your hands on me and make me feel better? And I remember just feeling like gutted when I heard that because I feel like at the time I was chasing so many things. I was still chasing this dream of acting. I was chasing money. I was chasing love. I was chasing all of these things, even though I'd been on the spiritual path for so long. And I remember coming out of that and just thinking, I think, I mean, I know me, I can only speak for myself as a little girl, like we all want to be magic, right? We want to feel like we can have powers and do things. And, I just like love like sci-fi and that kind of stuff. And I was like, what a gift it is that I can help people feel better in whatever way that is, whether it's with coaching, whether it's Reiki, whatever it is. And I thought it was just so interesting how I was putting everything else on a pedestal and I was putting this like healing, this like side healing thing, like so low on the totem pole of importance. And how really it was my own inner child that was like, that's what we need more than anything, is for someone to help us. And that's why we need to help others, because what you need is typically your gift, right? It's like, where, what does Ruby say? Like where the light comes in or something like that. It's like where you're cut, that's where the light comes in. Usually your wound is your gift. And I remember just having this like epiphany of, I need to prioritize Reiki. And like, sure enough, my teacher was doing the master training the next weekend. And she only does it like once or twice a year. So the timing was just so kismet. And I just like threw myself into it, fully surrendered, and was like, I'm so done with like this shallow, superficial LA life. The one, and not saying everyone's is, but the one that I had created. And I have some great friends, and there's tons of caveats, but I was just like, I'm done pretending to be someone else. I'm done chasing this pipe dream. I just want to do what I was put on this earth to do. And I want to tap into my purpose instead of trying to figure out my purposes and trying to steer the ship. Like, let God just steer me. And I threw myself into the Reiki, and it was so sensational. And everything changed. That story I told you guys yesterday with Sedona, I think that happened like the next week. It was like, I'm telling you, when you do the Reiki master, it's like, I always say it's like a snow globe. It'll just shake up everything. So you need to make sure that you're ready. Like, that's what I always tell my students. I'm like, do you have the space that if like everything might change? Because that's kind of what the Reiki master does. Like, if you're headed on the wrong path, it's going to pop you onto the right path. And usually it's like not a slow or quiet process. And so that was so wild how that bachelorette party was so divinely planned, and it was such a gift. Like, I don't regret going at all. I also really think regret is the silliest thing in the world, because you can't change anything. So I'm just not the type that regrets things. But even after hearing how hard it was on me, I want you to know that like, I am so grateful for it, because it was singularly that event that then I did the session. And then because of that, I did the Reiki master, and my entire life, has completely changed because of the Reiki master, because that led me into this path. It led me to doing virtual sessions. It led me to content. It led me to all of these incredible things. And it has been such a gift. And it's really beautiful to see how everyone experiences Reiki so different. Like, some people experience it visually, some people hear it, some people feel it physically. I feel like most of the times when I'm working on someone, there's a huge change in temperature. Like, if I'm hot, they're cold. If they're cold, I'm hot. It's almost like a battery. Like, if I'm pulling, they're the opposite. Or if I'm pushing, like they're the opposite of the temperature. And it's just so incredible. Sometimes people experience memories that they forgot. Sometimes people hear and see their loved ones. Some people have like full transcendental kind of like visuals that are beyond what I'm saying. Some people connect with their spirit guides. Some people literally are bored up the wazoo. A lot of people just sleep. But what Reiki does, it's almost as if you take your car in, however many months, whenever the light goes on, to make sure everything's running smoothly. And that's kind of what Reiki does. Like, it goes in, you're able to see what chakras are balanced, which ones are blocked, and you're able to just really assess where the energy is, where the leaks are. A lot of times, like, other people's energy will be attached, so you can like clean that up. But really what Reiki is, after that long tangent, is it is unconditional love. And it is meant to balance you, to show you exactly where you are. And that is what changed my life the most. trajectory wise, because I feel like I was so into the extreme stuff, like ayahuasca and bufo and all that kind of stuff. And then it just came in like a whisper and it came in so, so gentle. And it's so life changing. And one of the most interesting things, so this is kind of a segue, but one of the most interesting things about the master is I'm trying to think if I want to talk about it today or on a different one. I don't know. I'm just going to talk about it right now. Is that a lot of people do the master and find themselves turning back to God after the Reiki master attunement. It happened to a good friend of mine. It happened to me. It's happened to several of my students. And it's not something that you would ever think would kind of lead you there. But I know for me, it like specifically led me back to Jesus, like even more so than God. I had kind of a second coming with God maybe about a year before that, I would say. All my times get a little bit messed up. So always excuse me if like my times are not adding up correctly. When you move around so much in years, it's like it feels like a lot longer than just a lot of time. But it really like lit me up for Jesus after. And I've had a client once who was actually an atheist who after the master like started getting really interested in God. And I just find that to be a really interesting thing that I have enough data now just from my students, my friends, and myself that that's like really typical. And so I find that really interesting in reference to God and to spirituality, which is probably what I'm going to talk about tomorrow because I just feel like there's so much to unpack there. But really, I'm a believer that there are so many things in this earth that are the same thing in multiple cultures and religions that are being called by different names just purely because of language. And I feel like Reiki is something that a lot of people are tapped into even before they get an attunement. I feel like when you fall as a kid and you scuff your knee and your mom comes and like puts her hands on it and kisses it, I really do feel like your mom's love is like the energy is going into you and making you feel better. I know a lot of people that come to me are like, I feel like I'm already connected to that energy. Is this any different? And so I feel like it's not necessarily that you have to like get the trainings and do the attunements in this specific way. It's just a way that has been done for so long that is highly effective and concentrated and specialized. But I'm a huge believer, and my students will always tell you that I'm always like, take what I have, take what resonates, but also ask for your specific gifts because Reiki comes through me a lot differently than a lot of people I know. I feel like I talk a lot during my sessions, and usually Reiki is completely quiet, but the people that come to me love that. I also bring in like singing and breath work and sound bowls and like all sorts of different stuff. And that is not common in Reiki, but that is how the energy wants to come through me. And so I just listen to it. I think maybe for a year after I started working on people, I feel like I did the same exact thing from my training every single time for like 100 times or however many sessions I did in a year. And then I was living in Sedona and someone said like, what would it feel like to just like allow the energy to move through you and not do it the exact way that you were taught? And I remember doing that and being like, okay, maybe I'll try it. I think I tried it on a friend and it was such a big, expansive, impactful, it was just wild. And I remember like I was like singing and they were like laying on the ground and it was just like this wild kind of like primal energy. And it was so big. And I had done a session on them the other way and they were like, this was so much bigger, was just, like I just felt it so much more. And it was such a good lesson for me. I'm still a huge believer of doing it the right way so many times that becomes the muscle memory, and then allow yourself from there to color outside of the lines. And of course that might not resonate with anyone, but that is what works for me and what feels most aligned to my heart, because now every session I do is so vastly different across the board, dependent on what someone needs rather. So it's like, I don't know, some people need a lot of talking. Some people need a lot of silence. It's way different doing a virtual session than when someone's in person. Sometimes people want to be pulled into the emotion. Some people don't. Like some people, everyone learns differently, right? Some people learn through hearing, some people are visual learners. So they want to do like a lot more visual guided stuff as they go through. Some people want to hear frequencies or hear specific mantras. And I feel like my talent is becoming this chameleon of doing it in the way that they can best receive it, because the whole point of working with the Reiki is that you receive it. And even though it's so gentle and it's so loving, I feel like it's interesting because sometimes when I first work with someone, I can feel like their armor just being like, what is this? I don't know if I trust this. Like, what is it? Like, it's like bumping against it. Right. And usually by the second session, they're like wide open because they're like, oh my gosh, I felt so good after that hour. I don't know what you did, but do it again and do it like more. Right. And so that is my spiel kind of with Reiki. If you guys have any questions about Reiki, definitely put them in the comments because I talk about this all the time, but I want to know if I'm missing any pieces. Some really cool things about Reiki too is like I Reiki all my food, I Reiki my water, I Reiki my supplements. Um, I put like protection around myself before I go to anything in a crowd, airports. I send Reiki to people I love a lot, like whenever they're hurt or in the hospital, just sending Reiki and love. Um, there's just so you can also manifest with it, which I don't think is talked about a ton, but I usually talk about it in my level 2 because I feel like it's just such a gentle way to manifest and you can like remove specific blocks, but there's just so much you can do with it. And I think most people kind of have this one like almost like vanilla flavor thought about Reiki of just like, oh, I'm just going to come in and like receive nourishment, if you will. And at its base level, that is completely true. But you are also going to receive clarity. You're going to remove blockages. You're going to strengthen your intuition. You're going to sleep better. You're going to calm your central nervous system. You're going to usually get like messages from the divine via me or via whoever you're working with or via your own intuition, like what you're hearing and thinking about during your session. I've seen a lot of people too come back from physical ailments. I also worked with an incredible woman who was trying to get pregnant and couldn't before the Reiki. And now I'm happy to say she has a beautiful daughter that's over a year old. That was one of the most incredible things was watching her journey of the Reiki basically allowing her body to feel safe enough to allow a soul in. Like, what cooler thing is there to do in this life? Reiki can also help people get over addiction. I've seen that a lot with my clients, alcoholism and drug addiction, leaving abusive relationships, because it's all about worth, right? We all accept what we think we deserve. And so when you start creating a higher worth for your body, um, other things are going to get pushed out because your worth is increasing. So it's like, no, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm not going to deal with that. I'm not going to deal with that. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that. Right. So it's going to push up against things a lot more. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Can also just set a lot of intentions. Obviously, you can manifest with Reiki. Yeah, the list honestly goes on and on and on. I know there's things that I'm missing, but it really just helps you realize how connected you are with the universe. Because once you're tuned into the universal flow of energy, you realize that we're all connected and we're all the same and we're all mirrors of each other and everything is meant to be. And it's like this beautiful dance of fate and entanglement that is impossible to escape. And I think that Reiki makes that really clear. So as you can see, I love Reiki. It has single-handedly changed my life so profoundly. I actually need to be doing more Reiki on myself. It's so easy once you're working with others with Reiki all the time. It's so easy to let your own kind of self-nourishment change a little bit. But I do love getting a Reiki session because I feel like my body's just like, oh, it's our turn finally. Like you like soak it up like a sponge. Oh, and one thing I wanted to mention, I should have mentioned this yesterday on the first one. You guys are all receiving Reiki. So like I just said at the beginning, as a Reiki master, I'm always giving out Reiki. So whenever you hop on here, just know that you are receiving Reiki the whole time. Obviously, I kind of have a gauge on how much Reiki I'm pushing or channeling out. And it's not up to like a full session amount during this because this is more about opening our hearts, learning, engaging, eventually having more back and forth dialogue with you guys in the comments. That's really my goal because I feel like I don't want to just sit here and talk about random stuff. I want to know what you guys want to know. And I want to have this like really be a dualistic conversation. But I just want you to know that anytime you watch this, either live or replay, listen to it live or replay, you are always getting Reiki. So that's another great benefit of hanging out with me in these kind of talent unplugged moments. But I love you guys. I appreciate all of you putting up with my technical glitch. Also, let me know, do you like this lighting better? It's like very bright. I love you all and hope you have a beautiful day. Make sure to subscribe and please, please, please leave your comments so I can know what to talk about tomorrow. Can't wait to see you there.